I'd poured my soul into Sapphire Innovations for years. Late nights, endless meetings, and every ounce of my being went into growing the company. It wasn't just a job, it was a promise I'd made to my wife, Elara, when we got married. A way to prove I belonged in her world. So when she and her sister, Isolde, called me into the boardroom that morning, I figured it was about the new expansion plans I'd been working on. I walked in with a stack of papers, ready to talk numbers, but the air felt wrong. Elara sat there, arms crossed, her face blank like she barely knew me. Isolde leaned back in her chair, smirking like she'd just won something. "Ethan, we're letting you go," Isolde started, her voice sharp and cold. "We don't need lazy people dragging us down." Lazy. The word hit me like a slap. I'd been up until 2 a.m. the night before, fixing a deal they'd almost botched. I glanced at Elara, waiting for her to say something, anything to defend me. She didn't. She just stared at the table, her fingers tapping lightly like this was nothing to her. My chest tightened, but I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I forced a polite smile, the kind I'd used 1,000 times to smooth things over, nodded once, and said, "All right, good luck." Then I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing in the silence they left behind. The rest of the day blurred past me. I drove home in a daze, the steering wheel slick under my palms from the sweat I didn't realize was there. Our house, hers, really, with its marble floors and high ceilings, felt emptier than usual when I stepped inside. I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling. How could she do this after 8 years of marriage, after all I'd poured into her family's company? She let Isolde fire me like I was some random hire off the street. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of the spiral. It was a text from Marco, the accountant who'd been with me through every late-night budget crunch. "Heard what happened. I don't think they read your contract." I frowned, rereading the words. My contract? I hadn't thought about it since I signed it years ago, back when Gabriel, Elara's dad, was still running things. What did Marco mean? I typed back a quick, "What's in it?" But he didn't reply right away. I leaned back, the gears in my head starting to turn. If there was something in there, something they'd missed, maybe this wasn't over yet. I got up and poured myself a glass of water, trying to shake the sting of Isolde's words. Lazy. I'd rebuilt their supply chain from scratch when it collapsed 3 years ago. I'd landed the Peterson account, the one that kept us afloat during that rough patch. And Elara, she knew all of it. She'd seen me stumble home exhausted, kissed me good night when I fell asleep at the kitchen table with my laptop still open. Yet today she didn't even look at me. I took a sip, the cold water doing nothing to ease the heat building in my chest. Was this her idea? Did she want me gone too, or was she just too weak to stand up to Isolde? I didn't know which hurt more. My phone buzzed again. "Marco, check the merger clause from the subsidiary deal. You're still tied to it." The subsidiary deal. 5 years ago, when we acquired that little tech firm to boost Sapphire Innovations' patents, I'd been neck deep in it, negotiating terms while Gabriel clapped me on the back and called me his right hand. A merger clause. What did that even mean now? I set the glass down and rubbed my temples. The first flicker of hope, or maybe something darker, stirred inside me. I spent the next hour digging through old files in my home office, the ones I'd kept from back when I trusted Elara to have my back. The contract was buried in a folder labeled Sneemerger 2020, yellowed at the edges but still legible. I skimmed the pages, my eyes catching on legalese I barely understood until I hit page 17. There it was in black and white, my name listed as co-chairman of the subsidiary with full authority over its assets. Assets that included Sapphire Innovations' intellectual property, trademarks, patents, the whole backbone of the company. My heart thudded. They couldn't fire me from that. It wasn't their call. I sat back, staring at the paper, a slow smile tugging at my lips. Not the polite one this time, but something real. They'd made a mistake, a big one, and they didn't even know it yet. I picked up my phone and texted Marco. "Found it. What now?" His reply came fast. "Sit tight. Let them figure it out." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the day shifting. They thought they'd cut me loose, but they just handed me the rope. All I had to do was wait. The morning after they fired me, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing, cutting through the quiet of the house like a knife. I rolled over, the bed cold on Elara's side. She hadn't come home last night, probably crashing at Isolde's after their little victory. The screen lit up with Gabriel Vale's name, her father, the man who'd built Sapphire Innovations from nothing and trusted me with it when I married into the family. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the button. What did he want? To apologize? To gloat? I answered anyway, my voice rough from sleep. "Hello." His voice boomed through the line, loud and furious like a storm rolling in. "Ethan, Why the hell did they fire you? Haven't they read the damn contract? I froze, the words sinking in slow and heavy. Gabriel didn't know. He hadn't been in that boardroom. He hadn't seen Alara's blank stare or Isolde's smirk. I let the question hang there, not sure how to answer or if I even should. I don't know, Gabriel, I said finally, keeping my tone steady. You'd have to ask them. He cursed under his breath, something about those girls and ruining everything, but I barely heard it. My mind was already racing back to that merger clause Marco tipped me off about, the one buried in my contract. Gabriel's anger meant something big was coming, and I had a feeling I was holding the key to it. I got out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand from the call. The house felt too big, too silent without Ilara's usual chatter or the clink of her coffee mug. I made myself a pot of coffee, the smell filling the air as I replayed Gabriel's words. Haven't they read the damn contract? He sounded panicked, not just mad, like he knew something they didn't. I poured a cup and sat at the table, staring out the window at the gray sky. Yesterday, I'd been blindsided, kicked out like trash. But now I was starting to see the cracks in their plan. That subsidiary deal from 5 years ago wasn't just some footnote. It was a lifeline, and I was still tied to it, co-chairman of the IP holding with control over everything that made Sapphire Innovations worth a damn. I took a sip, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth from how they treated me. If Gabriel was this worked up, it meant Ilara and Isolde had no idea what they'd stepped into. And I wasn't about to tell them. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marco this time. Gabriel just called me too. He's losing it. Said the girls screwed up big. I smirked, typing back. He called me first. What's he saying? Marco's reply came quick. Kept asking about the merger terms. Think he's worried about the patents. The patents, of course. Sapphire Innovations wasn't just a name. It was a brand built on tech designs and trademarks, all locked up in that subsidiary I'd helped acquire. Without my signature, they couldn't license anything. They couldn't move forward on new deals. I set the phone down and leaned back, the coffee warming my hands. Yesterday, I'd felt like a fool walking out of that boardroom with my tail between my legs. But today I was starting to feel like the one in control. Gabriel's call wasn't just a rant. It was a warning one Ilara and Isolde hadn't heard yet. I wondered how long it would take them to figure it out, how long before they came crawling back. I spent the rest of the morning pacing the house, my mind spinning with what-ifs. What if they tried to fight it? What if they called their fancy lawyers? I didn't know much about legal stuff, but I knew enough to trust Marco and Gabriel. If he was this mad, it meant the contract was ironclad. I stopped by the window again, watching a delivery truck rumble down the street. My whole life had been about keeping things steady, fixing problems at work, smoothing things over with Ilara when she got stressed, even biting my tongue when Isolde snapped at me. But steady didn't matter anymore. They'd pushed me out, and now they were about to find out what that cost them. I was in the middle of making coffee, the pot gurgling on the counter, when my phone rang. Ilara's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a second, the sound cutting through the quiet morning like a warning. She hadn't called since the firing, just sent those careful texts I'd ignored. Part of me wanted to let it ring, keep the silence I'd been holding on to, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up, keeping my voice flat. Yeah, there was a pause. Then her voice came through, softer than I expected, strained like she hadn't slept. Ethan, can we meet? Please. I didn't say anything right away, just let her words hang there. Meet. After everything she wanted to meet. I could hear the desperation under her tone, the crack in that cool front she'd kept up in the boardroom. Why? I asked finally, leaning against the counter. She sighed, a shaky sound. I want to fix it. A misunderstanding. I almost laughed but didn't. I just said, okay. Noon. That place on 5th. She agreed quickly, like she was afraid I'd change my mind, and hung up. I got to the restaurant early, a little spot we used to go to back when things were good, with tables, soft lighting, the kind of place that felt warm once. Now it just felt like a stage for whatever this was. I sat in a corner booth sipping water, watching the door. Ilara walked in right on time, her coat pulled tight around her, her face pale and tired. She saw me and forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, then slid into the seat across from me. Hey, she said, her voice light, like we were just catching up. I nodded, keeping my expression blank. Hey, she fidgeted with her napkin, then leaned in a little. Ethan, I'm sorry about how this went down. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I raised an eyebrow, waiting. She kept going, her words tumbling out now. Bianca pushed for it, and I didn't know how to stop her. We can work this out, right? You don't have to freeze everything. I listened, my hands still on the table, not smiling, not moving. She was trying to charm me like she used to when she'd messed up. Big eyes, soft voice, all of it. But it didn't hit the same anymore. The waiter came by, and she ordered a salad, her fingers twisting the menu before she handed it over. I got a burger, keeping it simple. When he left, she tried again. We need you, Ethan. The company's a mess without those approvals. Can't we just put this behind us? I took a sip of water, letting her stew for a second. Then I heard Isolde's voice in my head, lazy, and saw Elara's blank stare from that day. I set the glass down slow and deliberate. A mess, huh? Funny how that works. She blinked, caught off guard. But before she could answer, I kept going. You didn't say a word when she fired me. You just sat there. Now it's a misunderstanding. Her face flushed, and she looked down, picking at the napkin again. I didn't want it to happen like that, she mumbled. Isolde said we needed a clean break, and Noel backed her up. I thought. She stopped like she knew it sounded weak. I leaned forward, my voice low. You thought what? That I'd just take it? She didn't answer right away, and then the food came, breaking the tension for a second. I took a bite of the burger, chewing slow, watching her poke at her salad like she'd lost her appetite. She glanced up, trying a new angle. Isolde's the one who pushed it. She convinced me it was best for the company. Noel said it was legal. I swallowed, setting the burger down. Noel's wrong. And Isolde doesn't get to pin this on anyone. You both signed off on it. Her eyes widened like she hadn't expected me to push back so hard. Ethan, please, she said, her voice cracking. We can fix this. Just sign off on the IP stuff, and we'll figure out a role for you. A role. Like I was some kid begging for a spot at the table. I wiped my hands on a napkin, looking her dead in the eye. You fired me like a stranger, Elara. Now deal with the consequences. She went still, her fork halfway to her mouth, then set it down. You're really going to let the company fall apart? She asked, almost whispering. I shrugged, taking another bite. Not my call anymore. You made it yours. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time and didn't know what to say. The charm wasn't working, and the excuses were running dry. I finished my burger while she sat there, picking at her food, the silence between us thick and heavy. When the check came, I paid for mine and stood up. Good luck, I said, same as I'd said in the boardroom, and walked out. She didn't follow. I didn't look back. I woke up the next morning with Elara's words still rattling around in my head. You're really going to let the company fall apart? She'd said it like I was the one breaking everything, not her and Isolde with their stupid power play. I rolled out of bed, the sheets tangled from a night of tossing, and made my way to the kitchen. The house felt emptier every day, but I was getting used to it. I brewed some coffee, the hiss of the machine filling the silence, and decided it was time to stop waiting. They weren't going to fix this themselves. I had to push harder. So I sat down at my desk, pulled up the contract again, and drafted a notice. Not to Elara, not to Isolde, but to every partner Sapphire Innovations worked with, clients, suppliers, the whole list. I kept it simple. All licensing agreements and contracts tied to the subsidiary were frozen until new terms were negotiated. No threats, no drama, just the truth. I was the co-chairman, and without my say-so, nothing moved. I hit send, copied the board, and leaned back, the coffee mug warm in my hands. Let's see how they handled that. The day went quiet after that. No calls or texts, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional car outside. I figured they'd need time to feel it. Time for the emails to land, for the panic to set in. I wasn't wrong. By afternoon, my phone started lighting up. Not from Elara or Isolde, but from clients. First was a guy named Paul who ran a tech firm we'd licensed designs to. Ethan, what's going on? He asked, his voice tight. We can't get approvals and our production stalled. I kept my tone calm, professional. I'm handling it, Paul. Sit tight. New terms are coming. He grumbled but hung up. And then another call came. Then another. Suppliers asking about shipments. Partners worried about deadlines. I gave them all the same line. I was on it. Things would clear up soon. They didn't need to know I hadn't decided what soon meant yet. I just wanted them calm. And Elara and Isolde scrambling. I was on my fourth call when Marco texted, sales are tanking, staff's jumping ship. I smirked, finishing up with a client before texting back, good. Good, didn't even cover it. This was what I'd waited for, them feeling the weight of what they'd done. I pictured Isolde storming around the office, yelling at anyone who'd listen, and Elara trying to keep it together while the numbers dropped. They'd thought they could run the show without me. But now, desks were emptying out, deals were stalling, and I was the one getting the calls. One message stuck with me though, not from a client but from Harper, a department head I'd always liked. She texted out of the blue, heard what's happening. If you start something new, I'm in. I stared at that for a minute, my thumb hovering over the screen. Start something new. I hadn't thought that far, but the idea stuck. I replied, "Appreciated. I'll keep you posted," and set the phone down, my mind spinning. By evening, the fallout was clear. Marco called, his voice buzzing with energy. "Ethan, it's bad over there. 2 sales guys quit today, and a big client just pulled out. They're blaming Noel now. She's out the door too." I leaned against the counter. The kitchen dim as the sun set outside. "Noel's gone?" I asked, surprised. "Yeah," he said. "He sold threw her under the bus, said the firing was her idea. She's packing up tonight." I shook my head, almost feeling sorry for her. Almost. She'd been part of it, pushing that legal line to Elira and Isolde, but now she was just another casualty. I thanked Marco and hung up, grabbing a beer from the fridge. The cold glass felt good in my hand as I walked to the living room and sank into the couch. The company was collapsing piece by piece, and I'd barely lifted a finger. That notice had done the work, short, sharp, and straight to the point. I took a swig, the bitterness matching the mood. Ilara's face from lunch flashed in my mind. Pale, pleading, trying to charm her way out. She hadn't called since, and neither had Isolde. Maybe they were too busy fighting each other now, or maybe they were finally getting it. I wasn't playing their game anymore. Harper's text kept nagging at me though. Start something new. Could I take the IP, the clients reaching out, the people like her who'd follow me, and build something better? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The company was falling apart, sure, but I didn't want it to just die. I wanted it to hurt them first, then rise again on my terms. I finished the beer and set the bottle down, the quiet settling in. They'd feel this tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. And when they were done falling, I'd be ready to stand up. I woke up the next morning with Ilara's words still echoing in my mind. "You're really going to let the company fall apart," she'd said, as if I was the one tearing everything down, not her and Isolde with their reckless ambition. I brewed some coffee, the familiar gurgle filling the silent kitchen, and decided it was time to act. They weren't going to fix this mess on their own. I had to push harder. I sat down at my desk, pulled up the contract, and drafted a notice to all of Sapphire Innovation's partners, clients, suppliers, everyone. The message was clear. All licensing agreements tied to the subsidiary were frozen until new terms were negotiated. No threats, just the truth. I was the co-chairman, and without my approval, nothing moved. I hit send, copied the board, and leaned back, ready for the fallout. The day started quietly, but by afternoon my phone was buzzing with calls from worried clients and suppliers. I reassured them, promising that new terms were coming soon. Marco texted me updates, sales were tanking, staff was leaving, and chaos was spreading. Isolde had even thrown Noel under the bus, leading to her departure. The company was crumbling, and I barely lifted a finger. One message stood out from Harper, a loyal department head, offering to join me if I started something new. The idea resonated with me. I could take the IP, the loyal clients, and the dedicated people like Harper to build something better, something that wouldn't crumble under selfish ambitions. By evening, Marco confirmed the damage. Key staff had quit, major clients had pulled out, and the office was in turmoil. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, the cold glass a stark contrast to the heat of the day's events. As I sat on the couch, I reflected on the journey. Ilara and Isolde had underestimated me, and now they were paying the price. The next few days were a whirlwind. I met with Geraldine, Gabriel's old assistant, who confirmed the chaos at Sapphire Innovations. Clients were panicking, suppliers were holding shipments, and investors were nervous. The sisters had bitten off more than they could chew, and it was satisfying to watch them struggle. I decided to take control and sent a notice to all partners, freezing licensing agreements until new terms were negotiated. The move sent shockwaves through the company, with clients and suppliers reaching out in desperation. I reassured them, promising stability and new terms soon. With the company in disarray, I began restructuring. I brought in Marco as CFO and Harper as VP of Brand Strategy, surrounding myself with loyal and competent individuals. Ilara, now demoted to COO, had no choice but to follow my lead. We worked tirelessly to stabilize the company, negotiating new terms with clients and suppliers, and implementing merit-based structures. The transformation was remarkable. Sapphire Innovations, once on the brink of collapse, was now thriving under new leadership. I introduced new bylaws to protect the company from future power grabs, ensuring that merit and integrity were the foundation of our success. The company's growth was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of accountability. As I look back on the journey, I realized that the betrayal had been a catalyst for growth. I had risen from the ashes of their ambition to build something stronger and more meaningful. The company was no longer just a name, it was a legacy of hard work, dedication, and unyielding integrity. And as I stood at the helm, I knew that the future was bright, not just for Sapphire Innovations, but for everyone who believed in the power of perseverance and the strength of character.